We are now on to the last but a very, very interesting session that I was looking forward, since the beginning of this event. And I'm extremely pleased and privileged to introduce the new speaker. He has been, if you can say it, not for having any alternative better words, he has been considered a guru in the packaging design industry for now several decades. He is a very, very prominent person in the industry and has excelled in his long and distinct professional career, which had over 2 decades with Procter & Gamble as the Global Associate Director for all Packaging Design Partnership, which essentially overseed the entire relationship of Procter & Gamble, which is one of the largest consumer packaged goods industry in its association with packaging industry worldwide. He has been, post his career with P&G, has been associated with several companies as it's on the board. And he's also has been a faculty member and a guest instructor at an MBA Interactive Intensive program of the University of Notre Dame. He's currently running a boutique consulting firm called Better View Strategic Consulting, where he advises brands and packaging industries on how to use design as a strategic element in their entire communication plan. Without further delay, it's my honor and privilege to welcome Mr. John Gleason. John, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. It's the honor is actually mine. I'm delighted and honored that you and the Packimpression team invited me to join you all here, and I'm also honored by the investment of time and energy by all of those who are tuning in to this this virtual presentation. First, I want to greet all of you. Good evening, good afternoon, and for some of you, perhaps good morning. So glad you could join. I hope this this presentation finds you safe and healthy in these extraordinary times in which we're living, and those which have created a virtual exposition as opposed to one where we might have been able to enjoy connecting and meeting each other physically and in person. As Pankaj had mentioned, I'm going to share my presentation quickly here. I have a background in design and packaging, but also have a background in operations, supply chain, and procurement, as well as innovation at P&G. My career covered a left brain and a right brain kind of perspective. What I want to walk you through is some context about the packaging industry, and I'm speaking to a worldwide community of experts. So I bow to your expertise and your perspective, and also hope that there might be some nuggets in what I share that might be inspiring for you to kind of carry and leverage packaging in a more strategic way to drive more profound consumer experiences. We'll talk a little bit about the role that packaging serves, again, speaking to a network and a community of experts. There's so much more that you all could add to this. And then we'll explore, could packaging do more? And then I'll close with some suggestions. So first, I want to share a little bit of context and perhaps some biases that I have, as you'll hear throughout this presentation. The first is, and I think one of the reasons for a discussion topic like the one I'm going to cover, the crucial role of packaging, is we all have various perspectives on the effectiveness of advertising. But I think it's generally accepted that advertising has become more complex, more difficult to reach the target consumer, more costly to try to reach those consumers, and as a result have become less effective in reaching than advertising has in the past, whether it's the 18 or 20 year horizon that's depicted in these charts, or the 40 or 50-year horizon if you look all the way back into the history of advertising, particularly television advertising. The other, based on my own personal experience, is ad agencies and those helping to create adverts tend to be campaign thinkers. They're thinking in the context of some shorter period of time for their brands and their clients. The ecosystem that supports advertising, media, digital, promotion, shopper marketing, in-store promotion, coupons, continues to support that shorter term cadence of campaigns. Design, I'll talk a little bit about design. I'll talk a lot about design. Tends to be more holistic in the way they think about a brand and the purpose of that brand and the reason it sits in a marketplace, the reason it exists. And they tend to design as a practice tends to look at a longer term horizon for brands. And packaging is a critical component and element inside of that design toolkit, if you will, to be able to help enhance experiences and not only deliver on the tactical and functional aspects that packaging brings to the table. Another bias you should be aware of is I was a part of P&G's design function at the very beginning of their journey to elevate design more strategically, not only in their business, but to build a design ethos and mindset into the DNA of the company and in fact into the culture of the company. And that has informed and framed the way I see brands, the way I see opportunities for brands. And when I talk about design, I talk about it in a more strategic sense, the idea of being human-centered, the idea of empathy as a core source of inspiration and information to help inform what it is you might design for. The idea of being in relentless pursuit to serve others, to serve humans. Being problem-centered instead of solution-centered. So many companies want to jump. They believe that the right thing and the expedient thing to do is to jump into solutions, problem solving, instead of really trying to sort out what problem am I really trying to solve and for whom. And design is iterative over time, not necessarily seeking that perfection ahead of and prior to a launch. Design is curious and inquisitive and ultimately is inclusive. So those set some of the framework. An additional framework that really continues to shape how I see the world is this construct that one of P&G's former CEOs, A.G. Lafley, put in place. Incredibly simple, the idea that the consumer is boss, that we're here to serve her, we're here to serve him, and the notion of first moment of truth and second moment of truth. First moment of truth, if you're familiar with this construct, is generally at shelf. How do we help the consumer find and navigate what products or services they might be looking for? And the second moment of truth is do we delight them when they use the product in their homes, in their offices, on the go, wherever they might use a product. So let's talk a little bit foundationally about the purpose of packaging. And again, you all are experts and you all will add so many more attributes to the purpose of packaging than I've characterized in this slide. But a little bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, starting with the basic functionality of packaging, protection, preservation, help with transportation, communication of general or safety information, how to use a product or a service, and then moving up this pyramid to things that are more aspirational and add a bit more value, whether it's communicating product information, communicating company information, whether it's used to sell or promote a product, 30% free, new flavor, something new and improved. And then kind of continuing to reach up into the more aspirational aspects of actually creating and or enhancing a consumer's experience. And if you play in the lower section, you're basically serving the basic fundamental needs of packaging. And as you move up that pyramid, you have the ability and the opportunity to serve consumers in new and different ways, and ways that could create greater value for that brand, allowing you to charge a premium, to create greater margins, to create loyalty because you've created something that somebody wants to continue to buy, and they'll tell their friends, they'll tell their families. But could packaging do more than those tactical, fundamental, tacit kind of tasks? And again, based on the audience I'm talking to, of course, you all know that it can. And so a lot of these, the examples I'm going to share, a lot of the considerations that I offer at the end of this discussion are targeted more for the people who are not in this virtual conference room, if you will. But hopefully might give you some thoughts, might arm you with some tools or some suggestions that you might carry forward to those people who might have budgets, might have decisions, might have initiatives, or might have problems or challenges that could benefit by a packaging solution that brings greater value to a consumer. So moving from the purpose of packaging to the idea of packaging with purpose. And I'll share, in 2016, there was a study in the UK that sought some information about recognizability of packaging. And consumers were asked to rate and rank their favorite package and those that are most recognizable. And here's the top 10. Not surprisingly, the Coca-Cola bottle, the iconic shape and structure of that bottle, came out number 1. Toblerone's triangular package, Marmite, Pringles, the KFC bucket, Heinz ketchup, Fairy Liquid. So my Procter background has Pringles and Fairy Liquid on here, though Pringles is now in the capable hands of Kellogg. Apple's iPhone box, Walker's Crisps, and the ubiquitous Amazon box. And as you can see from these, visually, they all have different characteristics. Some have structure as a key component of their recognizability. All of them have some aspect of graphic presentation. And as Alex Center from Coca-Cola, who was a design director at the time of this study, kind of talked about how packaging is always important. Advertising continues to be something that is critically important at Coca-Cola, but nothing beats the feeling of a cold Coca-Cola bottle in your hand. And so kind of carrying forward the ability for packaging not only to serve those tactical functional needs, but to begin to touch the emotion of the consumer, the feeling of an ice cold bottle in your hand. And many of these recognizable packages have the ability to be recognized without brand treatments, whether it's in silhouette or just simply without labels. But it's not only about structure. It's about the ability to carry that forward. So we've kind of covered some aspects of recognizability. Again, information that you all know, information that you all passionately believe in as advocates of packaging for your own representation inside the industry. But what happens when we get this right? What ability does a brand have? So let's take a look at that number 1 ranking, Coca-Cola. In the middle, you see the ubiquitous and iconic bottle. They also bring a distinctive color, so much so that Pantone has awarded Coca-Cola its own color. But you have something special when not only the physical manifestation of that iconic bottle shows up, but when you begin to depict it graphically on other forms, like the representation of the bottle on the mini can on the top row, and the fun and an experiential version of that bottle depicted on a cup in the lower roll. But it's not only about the physical shape of this bottle, but it's what might you do with that bottle. And when you have something that's iconic, you might be able to get away with executing without even putting your own brand name on it. You notice that it's Coca-Cola has been taken off, and this is a part of Coca-Cola's quite famous Share a Coke campaign. This one happens to be from Pakistan. But carrying that forward in the physical sense of a bottle that can be shared, either looking out for my own name or finding a friend's name and gifting that. But now taking that bottle into the digital experience for that brand. This particular one is if you want to see if your name happens to appear on bottles available in stores, you can type it in to find your name. And not only knowing that, oh, it's available in stores somewhere, but then carrying that forward and being able to take the visual and virtual part of this bottle and share it with a friend digitally, just to say, I was thinking about you. It begins to extend the ability for the role that packaging plays, physical or virtual. And not only when you've created the ecosystem that can do this physically and digitally, but you now have the ability also to customize and personalize. So if you want to share a Coke, in this case, with a special friend or a special group, you can have that made with the technology of digital printing to celebrate a special moment, a family reunion, a wedding, some aspect of sharing the ability. So kind of packaging being at the center of this becomes the ability to create an entire ecosystem. And these personalized things, as many of you know, consumers are willing to pay significant premiums to have this as a part of their special event or sharing with a special friend. But it's not just the ability to leverage technology. Brands are leveraging packaging to create distinctive moments, memorable moments, things that people, again, are willing to pay a premium for, whether it's Tiffany or Hermes, and creating that standard of luxury, in this case, through packaging, also extends the opportunity for brands to find collaborations. This one is Apple's Apple Watch with Hermes for an Hermes watch, accompanied by an incredibly powerful brand icon like the Hermes package, the Hermes box. But it's not only it playing at the premium end. It's everyday products like Kleenex tissues, who moved from cartons to cubes to ovals and wedges. The ability to leverage packaging to take advantage of seasonality, whether it's summer and I want to have fruits, or celebrate picnics or outdoor dining, or any dining in the context of a pandemic, or whether it's trying to fit into my home decor, and leveraging packaging as a way of trying to enhance my life as a consumer through the execution of packaging. And consumption is another driver of these experiences. Oreo cookies, the package on the left, tended to be carefully opened, or you'll rip the bag and then potentially risk freshness and stability if I keep this package over a matter of days or weeks. Whereas the solution that Oreo created on the right not only creates resealable freshness, but it creates a new way of using and potentially sharing the product, and creates this profound experience that, again, consumers might be willing to pay more for. I want to share a couple of additional examples that go a little bit deeper into packaging becoming the fundamental way that a brand shows up in the market as opposed to advertising. Method is a cleaning products company largely based in North America and in Europe. When they first launched, they were a startup that grew up. When they decided for their first major launch, they hired a famous celebrity designer to design their first bottle, which happens to be the one that's depicted here. They believed that this was going to be the initiative that was going to, quote, put them on the map. Allegedly, they spent $1 million only on engaging the designer, not on tooling, not on other things, because they knew this was going to be the thing that helped put them into people's homes. And their idea was they wanted to create a beautiful artifact that stood apart from the somewhat ubiquitous similar design structures and shapes in the dish category. An interesting side story is this design. If any of you are familiar with the design, Karim Rashid is the designer. He designed a chess set 2 years earlier, and the bottle the bottle design looks miraculously and perhaps conveniently similar to the pawn of Karim Rashid's chess set. So it's fascinating that he can charge $1 million for replicating something that he created. But basically what Method was trying to do was they were trying to create differentiation in the store, because part of their point of view was we cannot outspend our big competitors, Procter & Gamble being one of them, SC Johnson, Colgate-Palmolive, Clorox, and many others in the variety of cleaning products that Method built. And they used structure first as a way of trying to get consumers' attention at that first moment of truth in the store, because it was so different. It caused the consumer to engage and say, what is this? And move in, pick it up. And then they began to use packaging as a way of communicating their broader ethos of trying to be better for me, better for the world. And that all came from part of this mentality of we can't outspend our big competitors. And so one of the co-founders, Eric Ryan, talked about cutting steel, the idea of making molds that then create packaging. It is not a supply chain cost, as many large companies think about it, or an operational cost. Instead, it's a media expense. They viewed creating these beautiful artifacts as a way of getting publicity for them, free publicity, and then using the advocacy and the affinity of their fans, their customers, their consumers, as a way of spreading the word. And from a business context, it was a fascinating reframe. And one of the things I would challenge you all to think about is how do you reframe something that is traditionally thought of as a delivered cost, an operating cost, a supply chain cost, and reframe this into creating broader experiences. And as a result of Method's thinking, their business skyrocketed from the time they were founded in 2004 through the time that they acquired Ecover, essentially their European equivalent, and until 2017 when they were acquired by SC Johnson. And they're using, SCJ is using Method as a way of trying to change and reframe the way they themselves think about experiences, largely through packaging, but not exclusively. Another example I'll share is a P&G example. P&G has a brand called Febreze, which at the time of this case study was primarily focused on treating odors in fabrics, couches, chairs, carpets, drapes, curtains, things like that. And they wanted to get into the broader air freshening and air cleaning. And the general sense of the category, as you can see from this slide, is most everybody was in very similar type packaging. Similar structure, similar size, similar componentry, similar dispensing and the effects of dispensing the product What P&G wanted to do was create a new line extension that played in this space. They had intended not to put much, if any, advertising behind it in the early stages of this launch. So they knew that the first moment of truth, that store experience, had to carry the day to get people to look at it, be curious enough, and buy it. And then the other thing that they wanted to do was, in that first moment of truth experience, indicate what the second moment of truth might feel like. And so what P&G created was this dynamic, a slightly taller and more narrow canister, but a very different trigger actuator. Instead of pushing down like a spray paint or an air freshener, it was more an organic trigger with an ergonomic top. The other thing that many of you have been in these kinds of conversations will know is the cost of componentry was an important part of the discussions leading up to the choices that Procter & Gamble made. And this one, the actuators and the triggers and the dispensing was about 4 times the cost of the actuator, dispensing, triggers, and caps on these type. And the typical supply chain conversation was, oh, we can't have that, we need to increase margins. But the way Procter thought about this was, we're not investing in a lot of advertising at the front end. So we need this bottle, we need this canister, we need this experience to carry the day. And the initiative itself, once launched, I think that the initiative objectives were tripled versus what P&G had hoped to get from the initial launch. And fast forward to today, several years later, Febreze is one of Procter & Gamble's billion-dollar brands. Apple is another one of these. They in essence created, if not accelerated, the unboxing experience. And if any of you have purchased or own Apple products, I would ask you as a show of hands in a real conference room, how many of you still have boxes? And how many of you have boxes for devices that you have since upgraded that you don't have the device anymore, but you still have the box? And I think that's the tight-fitting notion of the boxes, how the things are elegantly packed inside. And the intriguing dynamic about this particular slide is the image on the left is from an online sale and auction site where somebody is actually selling empty Apple boxes, no product inside, for 5 or 10 British pounds a piece. So there's a marketplace for packaging in the sense that these things are precious, that people want to hold on to them. P&G has recently done something where they've taken the bottle, and in fact they've depicted the bottle on an eco box, which was designed exclusively and primarily for e-commerce, because it ships better, it ships more safely, and it creates a better unboxing experience than having some bubble wrap and a bottle floating around inside of a rectangular brown box, whether it's from Alibaba, whether it's from Amazon, or from some retailer. And then another former P&G product now in the hands of Kellogg. This is their newest launch, where they've announced and launched a new paper can. And for anybody who has enjoyed Pringles might know that this is a multi-layer laminate can that was not able to be recycled despite it having fiberboard content. And not only are they using this iconic canister as a way of trying to say this is a new paper can, but they're using the graphics as a way of advertising the new benefit, Recycle Me, and proudly putting out the ability to share that this is now recyclable. And a lot of consumers may not have fully appreciated the fact that it wasn't. Some may have actually tried to recycle it because it did have fiber content. But it's the ability to not only leverage that iconic shape and structure and format of not only the product but the package, but use that as the advertising for what this new thing is. And so one of the things I want to share with you is a challenge. What if the package could be something else? What if we never throw it away? And so with that, I want to play a video. So that kind of characterizes the idea of not only looking to enhance the package itself to create great experiences, but how might we proactively, or in the case of Coca-Cola in partnership with one of their agencies, how do we retroactively extend the life of packaging so that it's better for the environment, so that it creates continued brand impressions that create additional value for Coca-Cola, and are there ways to enhance that? So the other thing I want to share is what happens if we don't get this right? What if we don't do it well? And so then if we continue to play at that tactical, transactional, functional aspect of packaging, well, part of it is we create a category environment that's difficult to navigate, difficult to find what it is we're looking for, because there's a certain amount of homogeneity, sameness of the category. And the other thing that happens is this becomes commoditized. Price becomes the differentiator. Instead of elevating an experience to try to enhance not only a consumer's life and experience and be rewarded with price premiums and higher margins, but now we're competing in a price space that in essence is commodity-like. And so one of the things I want to share a video from my former boss at Procter & Gamble, Claudia Kachka, who was the first global head of design for P&G, first design officer, at a conference that she was speaking at. This is from 2008, so forgive the video and audio quality. But I want to share this very quickly with you. And let me fast forward to the section where she's talking about this.
So we moved into phase one, and I call this design as aesthetics. All right. I think we all know design can do a whole lot more than just aesthetics. But we really felt aesthetics are very important in our world. And so we really valued aesthetics, certainly as designers. And we also knew we had to kind of start with the basics. You know, you have to start in the beginning. And so you would have thought this is easy, this would make so much sense, particularly since we have beauty brands. But when we started this, our hair care business had just converted all of their hair care brands, shampoos, conditioners, and then body washes, to the same bottle, all right, for a cost savings. So they put everything in the same bottle to save money and run fast down those lines. And you just use different labels. And, you know, I don't remember how much it saved, but not nearly enough. So, of course, the designers were horrified, and it caused one of our designers to really recommend another approach to save even more money. Why change the labels? It had an interesting impact, I can tell you. So
So imagine the idea of not changing the label at all and only putting a tick box on it, and what that might do for the perception for the consumer. And it's an extreme example, but I think it highlights the pendulum of those brands that do exceptionally well to create experiences that then create loyalty and margin and repurchase and advocacy, and those who see it as a supply chain cost that needs to be optimized and minimized. And so as we continue through, one final example I'll share is one that happened in the US 11 years ago. Tropicana orange juice, many of you may be familiar with this. It certainly has an icon status of what not to do from a design and rebrand and packaging perspective. Annual sales at the time of about $700 million. In early January of 2009, they launched a major rebrand, the package on the right, from the package on the left. They had created a $35 million ad campaign, invested lots of money in the redesign process, creating new supply chains. Literally within days, consumers were complaining because they couldn't find their Tropicana. They didn't recognize the new package despite the advertising. Literally 6 weeks later, the sales were down 20%, about $30 million. Market share was eroding. On that timing, now mind you, 6 weeks after the launch, PepsiCo announced that they were going to move back into the old or original packaging. They were going to drop the ad campaign. They did a trade recall. This is perfectly good orange juice. They pulled it off shelves and then quickly, in crisis mode, moved back to, imagine, buying packaging materials, putting supply chain and filling operations, shipping and logistics operations in place, such that by the end of March, 3 months after they launched this, they had invested a total of about $100 million in the ad campaign, lost sales, and crisis emergency replenishment, only to be back in the package that they were in just 3 months earlier, and had tarnished their reputation with consumers. The other thing that this launch did was not only impact Tropicana and PepsiCo's financials for that period, but it created massive fear among almost all other FMCG companies about rebranding and major relaunches. And so many large companies put major relaunches and rebrands on hold because they didn't want to be the next Tropicana. Tropicana had become a verb in that case. You don't want to be Tropicanaed. So not doing packaging well can be catastrophic for your business. So I want to close with a few considerations for all of you to think about and carry this forward with your business partners, your clients, your colleagues. The first is to be human-centered in the way that you solve for challenges. Seek to solve and improve the lives of consumers. And this idea of being human-centered also applies to your colleagues. I can't tell you how many times I go into a large company and they talk about, in a very proud way, how they've nailed empathy and being human-centered, and we help our consumers and we improve their lives. But 3 minutes later in the conversation, they talk about John in manufacturing or Jane in finance, who is a barrier to their own collaboration. So they're not being human-centered internally. And so think about how you might be human-centered. What does John or Jane want? How are they measured? What are their priorities, not only in the work that they do, but in their life? The second is to be humanity-centered, the idea of a broader service to the world, not solely to individuals. And how might I leave the world a better place? And if you, what I have found is if you think about the notion of being humanity or community-centered, it makes things like sustainability or ethics or some of the solutions that you might want to put forward much easier to defend and rationalize and much easier to deliver. One of the things I'll talk about is this idea of listening with your eyes and your heart. And so part of that is there's an interview that I will not share in the interest of time with P&G's CEO at the time, talking about in-home visits and in-store visits that he does, that P&G's packaging was always rated as a top performing package, 4 or 5 in consumer studies. But yet when he watched consumers try to open a box of Tide detergent, they usually had scissors or screwdrivers or nail files to poke through the box, even though allegedly it was rated incredibly high based on those consumer research studies. And part of that is this notion of having the consumer show you, not just tell you. Constantly ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve and for whom? And if the answer is we're trying to solve a human frustration, great, go for it. If you're trying to solve a business metric, I'll talk about this in a couple points. If you're trying to solve a business metric, that's not a problem to solve. That's a symptom of something else. And the other bias I have is this notion of being problem-centered, not solution-centered. If you identify a profound problem to solve, you're more likely to solve the core problem as opposed to passing over the problem and simply trying to jump to my favorite solution. Oh, I really like this. I talked about resist the business metric as the problem, aspire to solve that human problem, kind of getting to points number 1 and 2. And as I mentioned, business metrics, oh, our sales are declining, or we need to increase margins, or we need to cut cost. Those are symptoms of something else. People aren't buying your product for reasons other than your own internal business metric. Have the courage to challenge everything. Too often we simply accept, oh, the price point has to be 99 cents, or we have to hit consumers of this age or demographic range. The objective of this initiative has to be, 10% uplift of sales. But we don't really drive into how does that help solve a human problem, and how does that particular assumption really solve the problem that we have got on the table, or support the solution that we have on the table. The challenge I have, I did it earlier in this discussion. How might you have a new mindset that packaging should be enhancing a user experience, not simply playing to the functional characteristics of packaging? How might you be more like Method and say cutting steel is a media expense? Or our packaging choices reinforce the very purpose of this brand and why it exists and our ability to improve lives? The other challenge and opportunity that I would offer to you is try to break it, if you will. Too often we get far enough into initiatives that we don't want to break something. We don't want it to fail. We preciously protect it, and we hope that a consumer or an operation or a competitor don't expose some vulnerability with whatever it is we've chosen. But instead, how do we challenge its very purpose and make sure that we're purposeful about that? And then the last one I'll offer is give them more. The idea of, instead of trying to cost save or take something away, which is always the first and primary action that brands often take, is I need to cut cost. And so I'm taking something out of a package. Sometimes that can be quite valuable by removing something. But how do I, again, kind of linking it to number 8, that packaging should enhance consumer experiences, how do I give that consumer more and let packaging be a part of the delight that I get from this brand, instead of just simply a vessel to carry that brand in? And with that, I'll close with design with purpose, on purpose. And I thank you all. Dhanyavad. And I will come back to Pankaj, and if any of you have questions, and if we have time, I'm happy to answer them. But I'm I'm honored that you stuck out your day long enough to listen to some guy talk about packaging.
Wow, it was amazing. Amazing and a lot of insights, really excited. There are several questions, John, so I do not know. We will take a few of them, right? What I'll try to do, John, is try to, club a couple of these questions together.
Okay.
And try to form it. So, let me make an attempt. So there are a couple of questions on packaging during COVID times, what has changed, and also how do you optimize packaging for e-commerce, which I believe both are the similar kind of a question. So let me try to frame it this way. Lot of brand packaging is not suited for e-commerce because these are smaller products, and then they get covered up with a secondary packaging, which makes it heavy, wasteful, and all those kind of stuff. While at the same time, maybe pre-COVID times, that product was perhaps going through e-commerce, maybe only 1% of the overall volume. Right now, it's 20-30%. So what has brand does, if you know, of way they have, I'm clubbing two together, is how COVID situation has enabled or has pushed brands to rethink their packaging design to meet the requirement of e-commerce.
Well, I think that's a great and incredibly complex question. So thank you for challenging me, Pankaj.
Yeah, it's okay.
One of the things that I would offer to all of you is what I have seen is COVID certainly created a great deal of concern among brands and among consumers. And some of these things are still unfolding as we are only 6 months into this pandemic and the various responses. But one of the things that I have seen, particularly in FMCG, because a lot of those categories continue to flourish and thrive in COVID, and like you say, it has become an e-commerce product, not an in-store product in many countries and geographies. But I have seen that it has accelerated decision making. It has accelerated the mentality of experimentation because things are happening so fast, and brands are now far more open than I think they have ever been to explore possibilities of new things, or to explore something that perhaps for 2 or 3 years has been, nope, not a priority. We're not working on it. And literally within weeks, yes, we're going to go do this. And so for all of you out there who are innovating in packaging, who are delivering packaging solutions, think about how you might be able to serve your customers and your clients and their consumers with pilot opportunities. One of the things that I have used myself with my clients is use the term experiment or pilot, and it almost guarantees that they think, oh, it could fail because it's a pilot, but we're going to get some learning out of it, and it accelerates our ability to be able to do some things. So I think that this is a phenomenal time for anybody that is adding real value to clients, customers, packaging experiences, to use the fact of that we're locked down, that everybody is literally working from home to some degree, as a way of trying to use this shared experience and the empathy that we might have for each other to say, hey, I've thought about something and I think this might be able to help you. The other part of your question about e-commerce solutions, I often ask my corporate clients, big, large FMCG food beverage companies, typically, I ask it's a bit of a loaded question, as we say, does your packaging, do your products sold through e-commerce have to be in exactly the same package as those that are meant for a retail channel? And surprisingly, and perhaps sadly, the majority of the answers are yes, they do need to be the same. And they're thinking of it from the functional aspect of, we want to minimize number of SKUs in our portfolio. We don't want to make our supply chain more complex with alternatives. And they're also thinking about it from the context that e-commerce still only represents 5, 8, 10, maybe 20% of their revenue and sales. Instead of the pandemic alerting them that it could be 50%. And why couldn't it be more? From an opportunistic and an optimistic space. So the idea that for example, I shared P&G's new Eco Box for liquid laundry detergent. How do you create something that is more experiential? And the way that I would challenge all of you to think about that is this: listen with your eyes and your heart. Watch them interact. Watch a consumer interact. You could do this virtually on cameras and video conference. Watch them interact with an e-commerce website to try to find and navigate a product. Watch them unbox a product, and like you say, if a Tide bottle or a liquid detergent bottle is shipped, it's usually put inside of a plastic bag, so if it leaks, it doesn't ruin the box or other things. And it usually loosely bangs around in that box. Not a particularly inspiring experience, but P&G with their Eco Box for Tide, Hill's Pet Science business, which is a Colgate Palmolive product, created amazing unboxing experiences for dog food and cat food that is shipped via e-commerce. And a lot of brands get this. And the brands that I think get it best in today's world tend to be startups and DTC brands, because they're already thinking about the consumer. They're not thinking about an installed supply chain that I happen to have. And that's, so hopefully that is a long-winded way of getting to your questions.
Great. I think I'll try and combining one last question. We're already running 20 minutes more. So this is basically taking a cue of that. I think one point which really struck me in the whole thing, there's a lot of things, and I will definitely rewind this whole thing again, was the Tropicana case study, right? I want to ask you a couple of questions, trying to understand that, and I'll try and put it something else together. In the postmortem of that particular fiasco, if I may say so, it was a big catastrophe. What was the root cause? Was it because they did not foresee, or they did not do prototyping, they did not do sampling? Why that whole fiasco took place of Tropicana? And just to load it up to make you think, was it because digital production workflow was not that popular in 2009 that the way it is here, where you can actually do a short run sample print and do a commercial run and really test out consumer experience? Was it these two factors responsible for that particular thing?
So there are a lot of people that claim to be experts on this Tropicana thing, but as you know, very few people were actually inside to know all of the answers. So I will provide an opinion and a supposition. I think the first challenge and alert is the ad agency created the package. And they created the package in the context of the campaign that they were thinking about. So they didn't think about the brand treatments, how the brand shows up in the context of the consumer's life, or in the historical arc of how that brand has showed up in the market. They wanted to make a splash by being the designer. The second thing was that has been broadly communicated was they did not leverage a lot of consumer insight in the development of any of those solutions. It was more a celebrity advertising icon that said, I know what consumers are going to want and I'm going to create it, and not really leveraging the consumer. And as a result, they absolutely did not do a lot of pre-launch testing and vetting. And I do think that some of the modern tools that are available today, even if it's digital, not necessarily physical, to be able to expose it to consumers would have helped.
Excellent. I think it really answers. I'll take one more question. I need to understand this question. So this question I'm just reading, and just like as it is, how can one use design in packaging to solve the problem of heterogeneous people? I do not know, understand what is it. Maybe is it mass packaging? How do you differentiate that? Or could it be, I do not know. How do you, the question looks interesting. How do you use design in packaging to solve the problem of heterogeneous people? I don't know.
Well, the way I interpret this, I think the reality that we all as people are different,
Yes.
and how might we take mass packaging and accommodate. So Coca-Cola did a nice job doing that with their
Bottom.
stab at Share a Coke, and not only did they go from names, then they went to roles that we played: father, mother, sister, brother, friend. And then they turned it into, and PepsiCo then kind of carried that idea forward with emojis. That's one way to potentially be able to do that. The other is something that large brands try to resist, is the idea of personalization. How do I make sure it is absolutely catered and customed to me? And brands tend to, the barrier they tend to think about is there's this mental idea of a price point. Oh, it can't be more than X. Consumers aren't going to pay more than that. And the cost side of delivering that highly customized, personalized experience. Not really thinking about that consumers are willing to pay significant premiums if the offering is right. You know, for me, the example I often use is M&Ms, tiny little candies. You can have the faces of a bride and groom for a wedding printed on a candy for a wedding celebration, or you know, almost anything you could print on these little M&M candies, and people are willing to pay for that. And M&M's has a wonderful ecosystem that might be $50 US per pound, or $100 per kilogram for these candies, which might be 10 times the cost if I went into a store or went online to buy it. So if you've got something that is desirable, that helps serve a need, Coca-Cola has got a personalized option that you can pay 3 times, and I'm making up that number, but 3 or 4 times the cost of a regular bottle of Coke to have something personalized on it, if the occasion is special enough. And so if that was the intention of the question, I think the other is just simply understanding human behavior. I think you can create some mass solutions if you're actually watching and observing what humans are doing in the moments leading up to and while they're consuming a product, whether it's laundry detergent or food products or beauty items, so that you can create a more mass version that more suitably meets the needs and frustrations and challenges and aspirations of a consumer.
Wonderful. I wish I had some more time. Unfortunately, we can't. It was a wonderful session. I already getting feedbacks. It was a beautiful session. We all enjoyed it. And John, it was a real honor, pleasure, and thank you so much on behalf of everyone. And we really appreciate it and look forward. I can't say when will I see you, but yes, hopefully to catch up again. Thank you.
Well, I'm as I said, I'm honored that all of those who decided to sit around and listen invested their time and energy and interest to do so. Thank you all. And I'm looking forward to a number of sessions for Packimpressions, in particular those that have a design spin tomorrow morning. But thank you all for investing your time and energy. And Pankaj, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day ahead, and hope to catch up soon.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Bye all. Thank you.
Bye. lot of very interesting sessions. We started off with some panel discussions from Australia and ended right up into US, which truly reflects the global footprint that this particular virtual expo has been able to manage in the first day. We look forward to another exciting day of seminars and panel discussions tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed, and have a good evening, and hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are now on to the last but a very, very interesting session that I was looking forward, since the beginning of this event. And I'm extremely pleased and privileged to introduce the new speaker. He has been, if you can say, not for having any alternative better words, he has been considered a guru in the packaging design industry for now several decades. He is a very, very prominent person in the industry and has excelled in his long and distinct professional career, which had over 2 decades with Procter & Gamble as the Global Associate Director for all packaging design partnership, which essentially oversees the entire relationship of Procter & Gamble, which is one of the largest consumer packaged goods industry, in its association with packaging industry worldwide. He has been, post his career with P&G, has been associated with several companies as it's on the board.